pan across the green field, past the truck where everybody's getting their flashlight, and all of a sudden I look down on the screen and I go, well, who's that? I'm like, there's somebody standing there. But wait a minute. I said, where's everybody at? Well, who's that standing over there? Well, where'd they go? I didn't say a word to the group because I wasn't sure I just seen what I thought I had seen. Pause. But then I got to looking at it. And I could see a head. I could see shoulders, an arm, possibly, a leg, a thigh. And I thought, well, wait a minute, I knew where the three guys that were with me, they were, because I was at the front of my truck. They were, okay, hit play. So, but the one thing I couldn't figure out was, how did he just kind of disappear? He just faded away. The heat signature is disappearing. It's fading away. How did that happen? It's almost as if he vanishes into thin air. Well, a FLIRographer for FLIR actually called me up and told me, said, no, here's what's happening in your video. There you see him at the bottom right. And it may have been two, actually. The other one's behind the tree. Pause. He said, what's happening? He says, the Pathfinder IR sees through smoke, but what's happening in your particular footage is there's a pine sapling in between you and that individual. And that FLIR is actually reading the heat signature through the pine needles. And that the individual basically just backed up and dropped down, and he was out of range of the FLIR plate. And so, of course, I had the privilege of getting to film an episode of Finding Bigfoot, and they came down, and Moneymaker and Cliff Brockman, now pause. That's me standing in the same spot as the individual. Now, what about this particular spot? And that's me, you only see me about waist up, because it was on a downward slope. So the individual that was standing there, we basically only captured him from the waist up. Now, that's me, like, keep going. Some of these stills didn't turn out as well as I was hoping to. It's hard to get stills on video. That's a heat signature. And play. Pause. That's a heat signature of something standing behind an 8-inch poplar. When we took the measurements with Finding Bigfoot, Bobo was standing in the same exact spot with his hand up like this. Now Bobo, if you've never met Bobo, he's 6'3", 311 pounds. He's a pretty big fellow. He's standing there, of course, me and Renee, Cliff, and, Moneymaker, we're all looking at the footage. And all of a sudden, Cliff looks over at Moneymaker and goes, wow, it's still a full 1.5 feet taller than Bobo's highest reach. Highest reach for a 6'3" man. We estimated that this Sasquatch was anywhere between 8 to 8.5 feet tall, standing behind an 8-inch poplar, and we figured that it took 4.5 to go across from shoulder to shoulder, which would have made him 36 to 42 inches across the shoulders. That's just one, of captures. But I have others, that I've captured in Bankhead National Park, Sitsu Wilderness. Like I said, 91,000 acres, of untouched, forest. And you're going to see an individual that will come out. Now, I was cooking bacon and onions in an iron skillet on the fire, and I had the FLIR actually looking over my shoulder. And the first time I saw him on the monitor, you barely can see, because he looks like, I thought it was a deer actually coming out in that opening. I thought it was a deer coming out into the, because they do that. They'll come out, check you out, that kind of stuff. And so I sat there, and asked myself, was this a deer? I'm looking at the monitor, I was looking at the onions and the bacon. And then, next thing I know, I look down at the monitor, and it comes back. I'm like, wow, it came back. The deer came back. It was, while I'm sitting there cooking, bacon and onions. And you can see him moving from left to right, where he came out the first time from right to left, then you can see him moving from left to right. And I thought, wow, he came back again. That's a curious deer. And then, of course, all of a sudden I look, and here he comes again. But this time he's closer. He's on the road coming into the camp. And he actually, as he walks past a big hickory tree, he reaches up with his right hand and grabs it as he walks past it like this. And he keeps walking on into the woods, and I was picking up just, little hints of him here and there, as he was heading down the trail. There he is. You can see him going between the trees. We did the measurements and the height comparison, and it was 7.5 foot. Was what we came up with. That this individual, that was sort of wasn't no massive monster, 10-foot giant, It was just someone checking me out, wondering what was I doing in his house, cooking bacon and onions, especially at midnight. And then, of course, I have one final little piece of footage that I'll share with you. And this is my most recent capture, and it came back in June. I'm sitting in the bed of my pickup truck, and I've got this clear, actually sitting at the corner of my pickup truck, just looking out into the darkness. I'm sitting on the toolbox of my truck, eating parched peanuts, when all of a sudden, this white blip pops up beside those two trees. Oh, it's a deer. I got a deer come out and look at it. Well, one thing, if you've ever hunted deer, to find out is if they see you, a lot of times they'll keep going till they see you all the way. And this deer all of a sudden does something out of characteristic. It kind of ducks behind two trees, but it doesn't come out on the other side. When I first saw this footage, I thought that was at the ground, the base of the tree. No, I went back the next day, and when I did it, I discovered that that was a bush that was 4 foot tall, and what I had captured was it had come up to it, looked over the top of the bush, then it tried to get a better look around the trees, but couldn't, so that's when it turned and took off into the woods. I had this footage actually reversed and where the heat signature is darker, and when you look at this footage, you can see the arm swing as he is going back out into the woods. He only come up for just to see what I was doing, just to check me out. Do I know what they are? No. I have theories and ideas, which is what everybody does. Everybody has its theories and ideas. Because to be truthful, none of us really know what they are. Do I believe they are? Absolutely. Because I've seen them, heard them. I've found work that they've done. I've found places where they've sat and eaten. Do I understand? No. But the one thing I'm learning more and more as I get older is I'm not as smart as I think I am. There are a lot of things in this world that I'm not going to understand, a lot of things in this world that I never will. And the first time I ever thinking that I do know it all is when I really become stupid. Because these guys, they don't care who's president. They don't care about the economy. They don't care if we believe them or not. They live because that's what they do. They live. Get out in the field, get out in the woods. You never know what you might experience. But I do this not because I have nothing better to do. I'm a 49-year-old preacher with 3 children. And I saw something that to this very day, you can stop it right there, I cannot explain, but I'm doing everything I can to try and find out more about this curiosity or culture or whatever it may be. I'm not sure, because I say wow, and I want to know how. I mean, Paul Hulsey, I thank you very much for your time. Thank you.